back so when I was growing up, I used to skateboard a lot more. And so VOLCOM, the skateboard company brand, is something unique and interesting and peculiar. VOLCOM, the company, is what this podcast is about today. Combined with the Warped Tour, the Vans Warped Tour, which is a music festival, combining the extreme sports industry with a music festival. Stay to the end to find out how it kind of flows together, yeah. So what we're trying to do is talk about how I first was introduced to the VOLCOM brand when I was a young child, when I was a young tyke. I was trying to learn skateboarding. From all angles, and so I started with the VOLCOM Stone as one of the first clothing brands that I encountered. And it's a unique, interesting clothing brand because the VOLCOM Stone, the actual logo, is such a unique, interesting shape. It speaks to when I first saw it. It's one of the only brand logos that is ever in my life to this day. The name as well as the logo pierced the universe. It pierced the universe. It made it go from the skateboarding industry into the metaphysical industry. It pierced the universe because in essence it showed an opening in the portal of conceptualization of what exactly a brand could do in terms of speaking through art, in terms of speaking through just art and a name. VOLCOM. What is VOLCOM actually? Even to this day, I still don't necessarily know. And what actually VOLCOM, the logo, represents a sort of a bright light. It's like a bright light, but at the same time it speaks to this like diamond, but at the same time it's upside down and backwards, but at the same time it's shedding light, while at the same time shedding darkness, because it has a unique shape with continuity that circulates and has a flow that's circular to an extent that also, for me, when I first saw it, when I was about maybe call it 8 years old, about 13 years old, it pierced the universe, and it pierced the universe. And so when that happened, it pierced the universe, and that means it opened the world to the physical realm, the metaphysical realm, connecting with art and a logo and everything that a logo stands for, because there's all this branding. There's brand representation, there's sponsorships, and there is unique, interesting, good skateboarding, and it's a whole brand, it's a brand vibe, it's a brand motion, it's a brand revolution to a certain extent, and all is based on a logo. It's the only probably logo to this day that's ever had an impact like it. Like VOLCOM. Yeah. VOLCOM also in the name. The name of VOLCOM still to this day, it's kind of vexing. It's like peculiar. It doesn't necessarily make a specific sense as to what it's alluding to per se, but it's got a full circular sort of flow around it that flows from skateboarding to the snowboarding to the skateboarding to the surfing industries, and that logo, which is on the tip of many surfboards, sort of represents frequency surfing, to me at least, in the present day, because in essence I was always a skateboarder back in the old days, and when it comes down to it, I wasn't that fantastic compared to many people, but nonetheless, what we're talking about is the comparison to that, as well as the Warped Tour. The Warped Tour, which is one of the first music festivals that I ever went to, which there's a humongous time gap between that first music festival and then the second one necessarily, but that was technically a music festival, and it also combined nature, but it combined extreme sports and nature and punk rock music back in, I don't know what year it was necessarily, it was I guess the 90s. Technically it was the 90s, it was the late 90s, and it was so much fun. It was just like, I was just barely, 13 years old, and that was such a peculiar experience because it actually combines nature. In the area that I saw it in, it combined in nature, so it was also a festival with punk music, and at the same time the extreme sports era, and at the same time we had this whole mentality, this whole concept that sort of went along with the actual nature of how all industry was back at those days. It was like a raw industry era, because the film industry, it's a much more raw filmmaking process, and the skateboarding industry, which corresponded to that demographic of the artistic nature, where everything had to be done by hand back in those days, in the VOLCOM days, and so in the 90s days, and so that is why also the logo still, it's stuck in time. It's stuck in time back in the past. Whatever the logo symbol stands for VOLCOM, it still stands today as that logo, and it's impactful when you first see it. It has a unique impact, and so that is one of the little essences, the influences that Dinky Tech, as the logo, is sort of taken a little bit of appreciation for, except now our sort of VOLCOM logo, if you will, there's a little depiction in the center of that logo in our brand logo, but nonetheless it's a spaceship that's alluding to a spaceship flying into the center of the ground. So to be able to bring rainbows to the center of the earth, to be able to plant them as seeds so that they sprout all over the planet Earth. And basically, at the same time, we're trying to allude to not a skateboarding team, but something called the B team. The B team is something that is and there were many skateboarding teams in the 90s. There were Shorties, there was VOLCOM, and that was just a lot of fun to watch those skateboarding videos. But now today I'm trying to segue into like transitioning into business music, taking that mindset of the making the world into a business music festival, trying to now make the world into a business music festival in 2026, and leveraging Dinky Tech as one of the founding, focuses and energies to try to strive towards more direction in that direction. And so nonetheless, the B team is about philanthropy. The B team, there was actually another skateboard brand called Plan B, which there still could be, called Plan B, that still exists, or it doesn't, I'm not sure. But nonetheless, we're talking about the B team. So we're talking about the B team, which is similar, except it's philanthropy based. It's a group including like Richard Branson, for example, that is philanthropy based, and it's about developing similar teams for business music surfing, business music frequency surfing around the world, basically leveraging all the tools in the world to try to leverage at the highest frequency of philanthropy energy generation. Philanthropy energy generation by being able to leverage the best people and the best mindsets and the best people that sort of come out of the woodwork, similar to skateboarding teams. All the best skateboarders in the 90s and even now, they are sponsored by teams, typically such as VOLCOM, such as Plan B, such as any of the others. And so that's what we're talking about in terms of transitioning that mindset into the B team. The B team is something that is not Plan B. It's something that corresponds to Richard Branson and other groups of folks that correspond to philanthropy energy generation. Philanthropy energy generation, as we're sort of vibing and riding through the scope of the world, leveraging the ability to ride and wavelength surf among the other folks that are leveraging and developing philanthropy energy. And that's where this sponsorship comes into play, and it corresponds to the Dinky Tech brand. Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios trying to make an extreme sport out of this business music, wavelength surfing, basically similar to the B team and similar to Richard Branson and the B team. Richard Branson in this instance is like an interesting philanthropy energy generating wavelength surfer who's a good, almost like a captain of this B team situation. And so it's just sort of full circle bringing that concept of the business music festival, similar to the Warped Tour, in nature happening, and bringing all these extreme sports out into nature while at the same time leveraging music, and the ability to be able to bring it full circle to a center place so that we can bring it back around into the United Nations, and we can bring it back through Broadway musicals, for example. And finally, we'll conclude by talking about clearing the animal shelters. We'll now conclude this episode talking about clearing the animal shelters. To, as always, clear the animal shelters, and let's hire the shelter animals as healers throughout communities so that we can give the animal shelter animals jobs and hire them throughout communities as opposed to needing to have them die. Hire the shelter animals, and foster the shelter animals to clear the animal shelters. And at the same time, world peace. We need to strive for world peace. That's all for now. Thanks again. Dinky Tech Change for Game Studios, the B team, and Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios, the other squad of trying to start to sponsor Wavelength, the surfing, philanthropy energy, generating good deeds, causing global good deeds economy, causing teams for wavelength surfing among each other to develop the global philanthropy energy grid to be able to surf in the sky. Oh yeah, that's all for now. Thanks again. Dinky Tech Change for Game Studios. Bye. Peace. Bye.